Yemen's war has been shorter than Syria's. That being said, Yemen was much poorer and less developed than Syria when the war started. In a lot of ways, there are similarities. There's a variety of different groups. You have different factions. You have very powerful exiles who may hold positions but are also rather powerless on the ground. But that being said, I think Yemen at this point is equivalent to how Syria was after 4 or 5 years. The number of people in humanitarian need in Yemen already exceeds the number of people in humanitarian need in Syria, in part due to the fact that Yemenis just in general were poor when this whole thing started. Yemen is in the midst of a multifaceted civil war that has seen the entry of a Saudi-led coalition in order to bolster Yemen's internationally recognized government, led by President Abdurrahman Mansour Hadi. In this civil war, we've seen the Houthi rebels and their allies, who are mainly the supporters of Ali Abdullah Saleh, take control of Sana'a and much of Yemen's northern highlands and Red Sea coast, as other forces, including southern secessionists, tribal forces in places like Ma'arib and Al-Jof, various resistance factions in areas like Al-Baida and Taiz, have pushed back the Houthis in an effort to repel a group that they view as invading their land. In addition to this, you've also seen a sprinkling of activity from Al-Qaeda and the Yemeni branch of the Islamic State, in addition to a number of other jihadi groups. Obviously, you have a Saudi-led coalition that includes all of the GCC states with the exception of Oman, a number of Arab countries, and logistical support of the United States and the United Kingdom, undertaking the military aspects. In addition to this, you have the Houthis' ties to Iran, which are often exaggerated but are present. Further, you have the role of the UN, which is taking a strong mediating role. And then you also have the increasing role of Russia, which has grown frustrated with a lot of the way the attempts to broker a peace have gone, and is increasingly seeking, or at least appearing to seek, to throw its weight around in Yemen as well. I think when it comes down to the talks, the fact of the matter is you can bring people to the table, but they won't cut a deal unless they want to cut a deal. And at this point, both sides still feel like they can gain more. They're still not willing to make the necessary concessions to reach a political deal. I mean, at the end of the day, Yemen's poverty is one of the main things that's driving conflict. One of the reasons why it's been so easy for different armed groups to gain support, to gain backers, is the fact that you have a large mass of unemployed youth in Yemen. So the collapse of the Yemeni economy has left war as the only profitable industry left in the country, whether we're speaking of smuggling, whether we're speaking of weapons trading, whether we're speaking of the actual fighting. So in any sense, bringing Yemen to a form of peace will require improving Yemen's economy. On the larger level, there needs to be a political solution to the conflict. This won't be easy, and it won't be immediate, but I guess the way you would phrase it would say that there needs to be a return to the political track. Secondly, efforts need to be taken to bring in a number of the factions that have been marginalized in the current talks, specifically the southern secessionists, into the dialogue. At this point, when you're speaking of the UN brokered talks, you have people that nominally represent the southern movement, but in reality have very little presence or popularity on the ground. Most of the key Southerners with significant amounts of support have not participated in the UN brokered talks. Finally, there needs to be real focus on rebuilding Yemen's economy and devastated infrastructure. In the absence of real shifts in terms of how Yemen is run economically, administratively, and in terms of real significant investment in Yemen's development, even if this war ends, it will just be a matter of time until the next conflict starts.